Good morning, Turfs Up Radio. Wayne Bowes, Profits Unlimited, coming to you live from Louisville, Kentucky. Yes, indeedy. My, oh my, we have rode around to another week. Here we go, starting off the week. Hard to believe it's already April 7th. Here we go again, right? I mean, look at it, man. We've got January, February, March are in the books. The first quarter is in the books. Hopefully everything's going good for you today, and hopefully you made it through the weekend, depending on what part of the country you're in. There was quite a bit of rain. I know ours started, goodness gracious, last Wednesday with some severe weather moving in the evening, and off and on a lot of heavy rain, Matter of fact, historical type of rain in some areas right around Kentucky here and other areas near us, and historical flooding going on. So here we go, trying to run a business and do what's right by Mother Nature and our customers and our business. And there we go again. So like we always say, Mother Nature drives the bus, but the reality of it is it's up to us to try to change the sail, no pun intended, and navigate through it all. So that's what we're doing. But one big shout out to anybody that had any type of damage, whether it was through the tornadic activity or just wind or floods. There's just so many things that were going on I think they said at one point it was, I don't know, 22 or 32 million people under a flash flood warning. And then we also got the explanation of the difference between flash flood warning and river flood warning, and absolutely two different things. And you guys probably know the difference, but I thought it was pretty interesting, to hear some of those explanations going on with our weather people here in the city. So, but yeah, it was something else. I was very fortunate so far, knock on wood. Didn't have any type of water issues at my home, and just thank God for that. And I've known a few people that did have a little bit of an issue. Um, and Kyle, I think, had a neighbor or a friend of his that's in their neighborhood that quite a few people had a lot of water problems. So, Daniel, y'all were good, right? Yeah, Daniel's shaking his head. They were good. So we were very fortunate. To think Tabitha had a little water in her basement, but not anything significant. Nothing more than shop vac didn't take care of. So that was a good thing. So um, here we go, rolling through another week, getting underway, and hopefully you had at least a decent weekend. I know a lot of you guys listening to us didn't have to go through all that rain day after day after day. Um, I know some of the areas here in Kentucky, they're talking about in Tennessee, our river levels are higher than they've ever recorded. So, um, quite a bit of rain. It's just in me talking about rain. So, everybody's out doing a little bit different work today in our markets, and hopefully you had a good day, good start to your week. Good day kicking off today, to say the least. We're trying to do a little. We're doing some lawn applications today. Sun's full out today. It's if you didn't know it was a problem or you weren't experiencing a problem, you wouldn't know it. But we thank goodness we do have some sun today, and um, looks like a not too bad of a week actually, weather-wise. Maybe a little rain moving in later on in the week, but we'll talk to our buddies with BAM about that on Wednesday. I think they're going to join me on my Wednesday show and do like a recap of this historic water and that was experienced across the Midwest and moving now further east. But hopefully, you guys over on the East Coast don't get it nearly as bad as we did. We just had that front that just kind of stalled out and just kind of flopped back and forth, back and forth. And I'd really wanted to get Matt on the air with me today and talk about it, but they had a company-wide meeting this morning. Mondays are not a good day for those guys to hop on at my time frame because that's their meeting time. So, but just let's just hope that's the last one like it, to say the least. I know we had, I think, a little bit over 7 inches of rain since Wednesday here in Louisville, and I mean places not too far from us. I mean, literally 35, 40 miles had upwards of 10, 12, even 15 inches of rain from Wednesday through yesterday. So quite a bit of water out there. So, and I know we got quite a few guys listening to us in the parts of the area that got rain like that. So, hopefully you guys are okay. Last time I checked in with everybody that I know and have phone numbers on, everybody was doing okay. So, um, with that being said, we're going to move along with our show today. We've got a great show planned. Um, we going to talk about a lot of things. We've got a topic we're going to talk about is mowing, obviously, and not mowing in wet, because that's obvious. But we just talked about that just last week. But because a week ago today, that's what we were doing, mowing wet grass. And um, at some point, you just got to do some mowing. You can't just wait for it to completely dry out. But you know who they are and who they aren't. But we're going to talk about bidding jobs. We're going to talk about perspective on understanding some things between pricing versus profitability, and how they seem to align a lot of times, but can be very different. So we got a lot of different topics we're going to talk about today. I've got one topic I want to touch base on is something that I read funny this morning, and I've actually printed it out, and I've got it here in front of me. I know you guys listening to me on the radio can't see me, but yeah, I've got it right here in front of me. We're going to touch on, and because it's funny, it's to the point, and we'll leave it at that for now till we follow up with it. But I want to thank you guys for all the views we've had on one of the videos we put out last week about our company specifically, going back many, many, many years ago. But the topic, I think, was how we made $300,000 a year mowing grass and lost money. And it's funny, we've got some really great content on it, as well as some very great comments on it. And one guy's like, "Oh man, that'd be equivalent to $1 million nowadays. There's no way you did that with two people." And so, and he was right. We didn't do it with two people. I talked about two trucks, but we did do it with two trucks. Got the tax forms to do it. Show you that's where we were at, man. And the reality of it is, hey, yeah, we accomplished the fact of making $300,000 a year and doing real shitty from a profitability standpoint. So yeah, it is true. But yeah, we did not do it with two people, but we did do it with two trucks. We had more than that. It was my brother ran a truck, I ran a truck, and sometimes we had one or two people with us pretty much all the time, and then a couple seasonal helps. So before you call somebody out and tell it's BS, and I realize a lot of you guys are used to looking at content that is a lot of BS. But I want you guys to rest assured that anything you see that we put out as Profits Unlimited or as Profit Time here on Turfs Up Radio, it's the reality of what we really experienced. I don't have to make things up, man. I've traveled all over the country, all over Canada since 1990, doing seminars and talking to contractors. I'm not a keyboard hero. I'm not a podcast hero. I just share real life experiences, and I think they're exciting enough not to have to lie about it. Now I realize a bunch of the guys out there, they've got 5, 6, 7 years or less, or some even more experience, that are heroes on podcast and that whole deal, and maybe telling a few stories. I don't know. I don't care what they do, but you can rest assured if I put it out there, it's stuff that actually happened to us at Wayne's Lawn Service, and or things that we've experienced over the course of 46 years of being in business. And you can take that right to the bank, man. I mean, that's just the reality of it. But like I told that guy I wasn't nasty to the person that responded. Heck, we like the fact that guys are listening to our content. But, you know, like I told him, hey, just take the content for what it is. I mean, if 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 as an I'm trying to think of the best way of saying this. If as an industry we weren't out there working hard and not making money, the failure rates would not be what they are. You don't have to believe Wayne Vose. You don't have to believe the Easter Bunny. You don't have to believe the Tooth Fairy. All you got to do is look at the statistical probability of your success or failure in any business, but specifically lawn and landscape industry. And those failure rates are staggering when compared to most other industries. Small business in general is hard to succeed in, but our industry statistics back it up that it's even worse than almost all other industries. Restaurants, I think, are still beating us as far as failure rates go. But, the reality is the reality. So, with that being said, we got a lineup that I think you guys are going to love. Mike, it's funny, and I'm not sharing that to get support from you guys. I'm sharing it in case that guy's a listener to us here on Turf's Up Radio as well. You can believe that the content that I tell you is what our experiences actually were, good, bad, or indifferent. That's what they were. So. I think the thing, let's see, Mike says what should make his eyes open is that mowing pricing hasn't changed in 30 years because the market is so prostituted. Absolutely. And pricing goes backwards a lot of times. I mean, that's the reality of our industry too. I mean, how many times haven't you particularly had a job at a certain level and somebody comes in and says, oh, we can do it for less? With a meet or beat concept. Well, we'll meet or beat their price. So to Mike's point here in his text, that's exactly right. Pricing goes backwards. We lost those accounts this year that I talked about here on Turf's Up Radio, and hopefully we'll get them back at some point. But it was a family. It actually was the dad. We started off with the dad, then we put the daughter on, and then the son. And, we had 3 or 4 of them going. And then this year, somebody went in and went backwards on the pricing because they thought it'd be a great idea to go backwards. Our customer took advantage of it. Which, when there's that kind of difference, I mean, in residential pricing, you almost owe it to yourself to try it, as a consumer. And then when you don't, then you come back at full rate for you, and I think that's a lesson I would like each and every one of you guys to take away from this conversation today is that in the event, I feel like I'm talking a million miles an hour. But in the event that does happen to you, know that when somebody comes back, they come back at your current pricing, not necessarily at the price level they were at based on the loyalty. Everybody's got a choice, right? We make choices every day. Each and every one of us do. But when they make the choice to jump ship because they think they're going to get the same level of service at a better price. And like I said, I'm not mad at the customer for that. I'm not mad at the customer for that at all. But the risk they take is if it doesn't work out when you come back at current pricing. And I think that's something that we all can learn a little bit about. So, that's we're going to actually talk a little bit more about that today. I've got a funny thing from one of the, and I'm not going to mention any names on it, but one of the business coaches that are out there that I got a funny email from today. And again, I'm not criticizing, but it was just kind of funny. I wanted to share with you. But yeah, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and take a short break. Welcome back. Appreciate you guys being with me today. Lordy, Lordy, Lordy. I tell you what, I was watching Shark Tank last night, and Mark Cuban brought up something as he was talking with one of the business owners that was in there looking for some funding and some support from one of the sharks. And I thought, man, that is a great topic for Profit Time on Turf's Up Radio. And the point that Mark Cuban was making, and I think this is very important. This is very important. But how important is quality to you? Now, I know it's very important. I really do believe that for each and every one of us here on Turf's Up Radio, doing a good quality job is very important. But here's the real question. And he didn't break it down like this, but I broke his comments down like this, just so you guys know in case you were watching it. And I think I'm doing it justice. I don't think I'm slaughtering it. What do you strive for? And this is a question that he presented to this lady. Not in this way, but very similarly. My question is, what do you strive for in your business? Is it perfection, or is it excellence? Are you striving for perfection or excellence? Because the point he made to this lady on that show last night was simply he believed, and the reason he wasn't going to invest in her company is that she was too much of a perfectionist. And I got to thinking about that. And I thought, you know what, Wayne, you've actually got to talk on that exact topic of what's more important, perfection or excellence. And I think the reality of it is, and obviously he's a billionaire, he's got the right mindset on this, that too many times as business owners, we strive for perfection when that is in most cases unachievable. And especially as we scale our companies and we try to grow into something bigger. So excellence should be the target. We can be excellent at what we do, but when we have expectations of perfection, and then we have expectations of trying to grow our company or scale our company into something different and better than what it is, whether it's a bigger company, a better profit margin, whatever it is that you want to fill in as those extras, if you will, that's up to you. But what can happen, and this was Mark Cuban's point last night, and that's why I wanted to talk about it today, because it just rekindled my idea on it. What happens a lot of times is perfection will get in the way of profitability. In other words, yeah, let's do a good quality job. Let's be dependable. Let's do all the things that we're supposed to do as a business to build a good relationship with our clientele. But we need to throw out the window the fact that we're going to be perfect. Because when we try to achieve perfection, in many, many cases, and in most cases, perfection is an unachievable goal. We might be perfect for the day, or we might be perfect for the week, but the overall goal needs to be excellence and not perfection, because we will tend to get and be too hard on ourselves, number one, but then also on any of our help team members, employees that are trying to help us achieve this same goal. So I think what we need to do is look at it and ask ourselves, are we willing to accept excellence? And are we willing to put excellence out there as our goal and not try to achieve perfection? And I don't want to keep hammering that horse to death. But I want to make the point very clear that, you know, it happens a lot of times with small companies that, you know, we think and we get in the mindset of it's got to be just perfect each and every time we do it. But what we also got to understand, and this was a challenge for me. This was very hard for me to understand that as my company was growing and I was scaling a little bit, I needed to understand that let's make the target excellence and not perfection, because as we start to delegate things to other people, and delegation is a big part of that, when we begin to delegate things, there's a lot of pain and suffering, I'll call it, that we can put on ourselves that at the end of the day isn't necessary because we're trying to achieve that perfection within our company. So know that yes, quality is very important. Quality is very important. Being dependable is very important. But I think the next thing we got to think about is let's don't be too hard on ourselves. You know, let's don't place unrealistic expectations on ourselves or our employees on what we think something should look like versus what, and this is going to come out probably wrong. It's going to sound wrong, but hopefully you guys get it where I'm coming from. And I'm trying to text somebody something at the same time. But the as important as the delegation is, and the growth is, and the quality is, know that there's just going to be some days when it just shit ain't going to be perfect. It just ain't. You know, that's just the reality of it. And I think when we finally, when we as owners finally uh, own up to that, I think that's how things are going to be different and better for our businesses. Is when we finally own up to the fact that, you know what, nobody's going to do it like you're going to do it. And that was hard for me. And this is kind of what he rekindled last night in my mind. You know, that was hard for me because I really did. I tried doing things perfectly a lot. And then I expected everybody to do it just like I was going to do it, you know, when we'd hire somebody. And that's not going to happen, you know. So when we begin to delegate and we begin to see our companies grow, know that nobody's going to do it exactly the way you do it. And that's okay. So let's see what Corey's got to say here. Corey says, "You mean we shouldn't fix it until we lose money?" No, and then he's got a laughing face. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying sometimes the expectations that we not only place on ourselves, but we try to place on our help, our team members, our employees, sometimes those expectations are unrealistic, because what it took me a minute to understand was, and it really wasn't a minute, it was a heck of a lot longer than that. What it took me a while to understand is that, you know, there's a there is a fine line between perfection and excellence. Excellence is achievable. Perfection's not constantly achievable. But then having being quality conscious about what we're doing and how we're doing it and why we're doing it is certainly an achievable goal. But know that we're not going to be perfect for everybody all the time, because it is an expectation that will drive you crazy. And it actually cost this lady last night, because that's what a couple of them actually thought about with her, was she was too perfection. She was a perfectionist, you know? So it lost the investment into her company. And I didn't want that to happen to you guys. Not that you're going on to Shark Tank, but don't get hung up or lost in that transition of, I need to be perfect. Because I'm just here to tell you, I tried it. It doesn't work. You don't have to listen to me saying it doesn't work. Let's listen to a billionaire, you know, literally Mark Cuban, who says, hey, man, you got a great business. I'd love to invest in it, but I think because you're a perfectionist, I don't think you're going to be able to scale it to where we need to scale it to really make some decent money at it. So I wanted to share that story with you guys today, because it's important anytime, any place, but especially this time of the year when we've got so many things working against us, whether it's labor, whether it's weather, whether it's trying to get, business going, trying to get your cash flow going, all those different things that, come into play all the time, but especially on our startups and, this time of the year, the reality of it is, do what you can do, understand why you're doing what you can do, and know that the speed at which some of the people that you're going to have working with you is going to be much different than the speed at which you work. But what everybody can do is simply care. And I think that maybe is a major component of what I want the takeaway to be today here on Profit Time, is know that you can always care and you can always have the goal of excellence, but don't put yourself under the pressure. Don't put yourself under the pressure of perfection. It's way too hard. What we're trying to do as business owners is not an easy thing anyway. So don't apply the extra pressure to yourself to try to be a perfectionist. Take a short break. Something else I wanted to talk about today is, and we're going to talk a little bit about bidding here in just a few minutes, but is understanding the difference between competitive pricing and profitability. Understanding the difference between competitive pricing and profitability, because they can be, and they are, two different things, number one, but you can and should have competitive pricing and still be able to remain profitable. Now, what changes sometimes within that is the customer base in which we're going after, So, but the reality of it is, the way you know the difference between the two is simply understanding your break-even point. And I know we've hammered this horse pretty good, and we'll continue to hammer a little more, because now's the time of the year for a lot of us. I know a lot of you guys are doing a lot of bidding work right now, And it can get very creative on how we're going to bid jobs and how we're going to price those jobs. And, well, I want to be competitive in my pricing. And, they've got this price, and this price. But the reality of it is, you cannot really understand the difference between competitive pricing and profitability until you understand your company's break even point. And then that allows you the opportunity as the business owner to go out and bid your jobs accordingly. But until that point, you're guessing at best if it's competitive, quote unquote, if you will. Well, I'm trying to be competitive in my market. Well, the problem with trying to be competitive within your market is having a good understanding of what your break even point is. Because are you trying to be competitive based on a unknown bottom line number? And I'm not saying any of us should or want to work for break even money. Hell, before you do that, stay home and don't wear your equipment out. But until we understand where the break even point is, it's hard to say or answer the question for the client, well, damn, y'all aren't very competitive. Well, maybe we really are, and they just don't understand what they don't understand. I mean, that's the reality of a lot of it, too. So then what's that tell you as the owner? That, hey, if I want to be competitive with my pricing and I understand my break even point, then I've got to know where to look for those clients. And I just want to reiterate that fact more and more and more this time of the year because of the importance of it. That, it doesn't do you any good to go out there and sell if you're not making any money on the individual sales. So know what those costs are and how you're going to incorporate those costs into your company's profitability. And I want to dive deeper, but I'm not going to today in that. But know that, yeah, I'm going to take one more jump off the diving board with this because I want to, and I can. Know that as you're putting jobs on that are neighbors, let's look at it residentially or commercially. Either way you want to look at it, doesn't matter to me. But know that as you're putting jobs on and their neighbors, we must be careful about adjusting pricing. Let's look at it that way. Because what happens is, yeah, you get 3 or 4 or 5 in a row, and it sounds really good, and the profit margin's sounding really great. But the reality of it is, the problem that comes to play with all that is when one of them leaves or one of them moves or one of them dies. We've talked about that. But the lure, the carrot that's dangling out there from the client a lot of times is, hey, you need to get more competitive because there's 3 of us that are going to use this, that are going to use you potentially. Yeah, but 3 of you use me, 3 of you lose me too. I mean, that could happen too. So don't look at it as just being, hey, I need to be more competitive. But are you going to be competitive enough to be profitable in the event that you're down to just one of them and not 3 of them or 4 of them? Excuse me, or 5 or 10 or whatever the number is. It doesn't matter. So that's the one thing I want you guys to keep in mind about bidding and competitive versus profitability this time of the year, because it can get a little bit convoluted when we let it. Another thing I want to look at is something that I read in a newsletter today that was a little bit concerning, but it very informative but concerning. And gentleman put out some information on the 0% interest loan scam. And I had a little bit of problem with it reading that way, quite honestly, you know, because, it said, well, it sounds like the dream deal, but 0% interest. We look at it, we say, oh man, that's free money. That's great. But he said, here's the truth that nobody tells you. You're still paying the price. You know, and one additional line that went into that was manufacturers and dealers bake the cost of financing into the sell price. I've got a little. I want to throw a rock at that for a minute. I want to throw a little rock at that because, and this is just my opinion versus somebody else's opinion. Doesn't make theirs right and mine wrong, or mine right and theirs wrong. But I can honestly say any time that I've approached a dealer for equipment, I've never had them say, well, if you take advantage of the 0% financing, this is the price. Or if you don't, this is the price. Now, that might just be my dealer. Okay, so that we work with. Maybe it is. And so maybe that's a valid point that this gentleman's making, that, it's not free, it's baked into the price. But what I do know is, since I know my cost, and I'm turning this around to my business model right now, okay? And we offer 0% financing through a program, an outside source program called Green Sky. Is the name of it. So we do offer an opportunity for somebody to take advantage of 0% financing, which does cost us some points or money, however you want to look at it, if the customer takes advantage of that. Okay, and that percentage depends on the size of the cell. All right, but my whole point's this: when we price a landscaping job to somebody, we're not saying, well, hey, if you run it through the financing program, the 0%, it's going to be $1,000, but if you don't, it's going to be $800. We don't do that. We price the job. We're willing to give up some of the profit out of that job, but that's because we know our cost. But we're willing to share or sacrifice, however you want to look at it. Depends on how good you want to make yourself feel, I guess, on what words you're going to use there. But we're willing to sacrifice some of the profit on that job in order to make the sale of the job and get our money immediately on the job. Now, that person going through that financing program. So they may buy, and what we've found is they do buy, the consumer will buy and spend more money when they can get financing at 0% for 12 months, let's say, on something they wouldn't have necessarily been able to purchase from us. So we're not baking anything into the price. We're given the price, and then when that proposal goes out, if it's a large enough proposal, the client then has the option of selecting that as an option. But we're not artificially charging them more because they're going to take advantage of that option. And I don't know, some people probably do. Some people probably do. But I was just a little bit taken back when this particular consultant said the 0% interest is a scam. It's not a scam. We don't use it as a scam for our customers. We use it as an opportunity to, because we know our cost, We use it as an opportunity to let our customers buy more from us at a higher price and reduce, and we're willing to share some of those profit dollars by giving up 4% or 5% of it to the Green Sky program, for an example, for financing that consumer for us at 0%. And like I said, equipment wise, we just took advantage of 0% financing on a new piece of equipment we bought. We just got a tractor. We took the 0%, I think, for 48 months or whatever it was. But the price that, they gave us the price beforehand, before we said, hey, is there anything going on special financing right now, potentially on this, So I had a little bit of pushback on that when I was reading that this morning. So, and I'm not saying, again, it's wrong or it's right, but I don't have a problem with you as a business taking advantage of a 0% financing if that's a way that you can expand your business. If you don't have the cash to go out and pay for it, or you don't want to take the cash reserve out of an account to go out and pay for a particular item that you can get 0% on for 12 months, 24 months, whatever it is. Now, you don't want to extend that out past the life of the equipment by any stretch of the imagination. You got to be smart in what you're doing. But I will say the funniest part of this whole email was the very end of it, as it related to this. It says, P.S. If you want free in-person coaching, I will fly out to your business for free. Now, that is a mixed ass message to me. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is that a mixed message? Telling me, hey, don't take advantage of free because it's baked into the price. But here at the very last line on the email, says, I'll come out and see you for free. I'll fly out and see you for free. I don't understand that. I just don't understand that. So I don't know. I'll let you guys ponder on that for the rest of the day, and we'll go with that for now. So again, I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying, don't tell me I'm making a mistake by taking advantage of a 0% financing for 36 months or 48 months, and it's a scam. Because I can tell you right now, a lot of our landscape work done here at Wayne's Lawn Service, a lot of our customers take advantage of our Green Sky program, which is an outside financing source that gives them the opportunity to do like a 12-month, same as cash, that otherwise they wouldn't buy. Cash is always king, right? Cash is always great. But sometimes it takes a little something to build your business. And if you can do it at 0% and that those terms are within the length of time for your company, then I think that's something that we all need to look at and say, hey, does it make sense to invest in a certain piece of equipment for a realistic time frame that my return on the investment is going to make sense? And if so, if I can get that money at 0% for 36 months or 48 months, and I know the term of that loan is less than the length of time that equipment is going to give me return on investment in my company, I personally don't think that's such a bad idea. That's just my 2 cents worth. I thought I'd share that with you guys today. Hope you guys have a great day. We'll see you on Wednesday. Be safe if you're in any of the areas that have had a lot of rain and flood. Hope everything stays dry at your house. And if you had any damage, hopefully that's going to go as easy as it can for you. And we will see you guys on Wednesday at 10 a.m. And remember, profit is not the dirty word.